I'm Connor Ennis of the New York Times, and I have the most important document in the country in front of me right now, the men's NCAA tournament bracket. Here to discuss it with me is Pete Thamel, college sports reporter of the New York Times, and Nate Silver of the 538 blog. Pete, when you look at this bracket, what jumps out at you?
Well, I think the landscape of the way college basketball has sort of played itself out this year, Connor, the word you hear all week during the conference tournaments, parity, parity, parity. But when I really think you pare down this blog, it's going to be a top-heavy tournament in the long run. So my general advice would be don't get too cute late. You can pick a few double-digit upsets early and everything, but I really do think some big names, brand names, high seeds will be there in Houston in the Final Four.
Nate, do the numbers bear them out?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, someone has to win the tournament, so there has to be relative strength somewhere. I think it's probably in the first kind of 3.5 number one seeds. And I think the three best teams talent-wise are probably, Duke, Ohio State, and Kansas.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the factors that go into the probability when you're looking at the bracket?
Sure. I mean, a lot of it is based on computer rankings and those that have best predicted tournaments in the past. We look at preseason ratings as well. Sometimes teams like a Michigan State say that underachieve their talent level in the regular year, kind of get together in the tournament. And we look at geography. So a team like San Diego State, a 2 seed in the West, playing almost at home in Anaheim for its regional potentially against teams traveling from across the country. That's almost worth like a 3 or 4 point home court advantage. But in general, the question is, who's got the talent, who's playing well during the regular season. Injuries are important. We can account for that. So by suspending Davies, for example, BYU cut its chances of winning the tournament roughly in half, and then it's now kind of a weak number 3 seed instead of a, average, decent number 2 seed.
Jimmer might have to score 70 a game. You said it's a top-heavy bracket, but are there teams, lower-seeded teams, mid-major teams that jump out at you?
Sure. The two double-digit seeds that jumped out at me in the bracket that I like the most are number 11 Missouri in the West, and I really like Gonzaga for some of the reasons that Nate said, though I don't have all the fancy math to back it up. I think that the Southeast is going to be the bracket of chaos. I like Kansas State to lose to number 12 Utah State. I like Belmont to beat Wisconsin, and I really think that Wofford, who I loved going into this tournament, I just like their resume. They've been there last year. There are a lot of characteristics that I look at for upsets that Wofford had, but they play BYU, and Jimmer can always score 70, so it's tough to pick that.
Nate, same thing. Are there lower-seeded teams that you think have?
No, I think that's right. The Southeast, they almost kind of ran out of teams, to kind of put in that bracket, and it's the reject pile for the most part. But it's not clear to me that the kind of 11 through 13 seeds in that conference or in that bracket are any worse than kind of the 4 through 7 seeds. Although a team like Wisconsin might be a little bit underseeded. Michigan State, I think, has a favorable matchup against UCLA in the way Izzo coaches in the postseason. That's Michigan State, Gonzaga, just kind of even odds I think you'd probably take in those matchups, and they might play each other, which could create some chaos down the road.
When we get down to it, everybody wants to know the Final Four. Is it going to be all chalk for you?
Houston, we have chalk. I'm going to say my Final Four is Ohio State, Duke, Purdue, my moderate chalky pick out of the Southwest, and I like Pitt to come out of the slog in the Southeast.
Nate?
Any team is kind of a 3-1 long shot, but Ohio State has the personnel to manage that, whereas if you put even like a Kansas in that position where they're just a hair weaker, then I think they'd be a good upset pick.
Well, as always, we'll probably all be wrong within the first 2 days of the tournament, but it's, it shapes up like it could be another great tournament, and we'll see how it works out.